So, the name Hugo Chavez, it still really sparks intense debate, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You have this figure promising such radical change in Venezuela.
A country with just, well, enormous potential.
Exactly, brimming with it. And yet the outcome we see today is this deep ongoing crisis.
Makes you really wonder, beyond the headlines, what were the fundamental shifts happening?
Mm,
The hidden gears turning, sort of,
yeah.
that led to this really dramatic decline.
Yeah, what was going on beneath the surface?
Okay, let's try and unpack some of that. Today on the Deep Dive, we're taking a close look at the presidency of Hugo Chavez.
Right, from his rise in 1999 right through to his death in 2013.
And we're drawing on some pretty detailed accounts looking at his time in power, his policies, and, well, the impact they eventually had.
The goal here, I think, is to move past the sort of simple narratives you often hear.
Yeah, get beyond the surface level. We want to really understand the core factors, the things maybe often overlooked, that shaped Chavez's Venezuela.
And which ultimately seem to have paved the way for the challenges the country faces now.
So consider this your focused exploration, a shortcut, really, into a pivotal and, let's face it, a really compelling story.
It is compelling, and right from the start, what's striking is that contrast, isn't it? Between the huge hope Chavez first inspired and the stark reality that unfolded later.
His rise wasn't exactly out of the blue, though. Our sources point out it tapped into something powerful.
Oh, absolutely. A really strong current of public discontent, that 1992 coup attempt. Even though it failed,
Right.
it just resonated so deeply. You had a population feeling ignored, betrayed by the political establishment.
Especially the corruption under Perez that's mentioned a lot.
Exactly. So Chavez came across as this alternative, someone willing to actually challenge the status quo and dramatically.
And that anti-establishment feeling, that wave, it really fueled the creation of his political movement, the Fifth Republic movement, MBR.
Yes. And when you look at the 1998 election,
It wasn't just a win, it was a landslide.
a huge landslide. It was this massive expression of a desire for fundamental change.
And he made these incredibly powerful promises, didn't he? Harnessing Venezuela's oil wealth
A vast oil well.
to finally tackle poverty, inequality, things that had plagued the country for years.
And that message, well, it just connected. It connected profoundly with people who lived through years of instability, economic hardship.
Political turmoil.
Yeah,
Wow.
indeed. And then, the timing. His early years in office coincided with this incredible surge in global oil prices.
They're almost perfect timing in a way.
For Venezuela, sitting on these enormous reserves, it meant this unprecedented flood of money coming in.
Which allowed him to fund those big social programs people remember.
That's right. The Misiones, like Mission Barrio Adentro for public health, Mission Robinson for education.
Aimed at marginalized communities, right?
Exactly, targeting those who felt left out. And initially, it really did seem like tangible progress was happening. People felt it.
It certainly created that appearance, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is where it gets complicated, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because what our sources really emphasize is Venezuela's, well, its dangerous over-reliance on that oil money.
Precarious is a good word for it. While the high prices brought in all that wealth.
It also made the whole country incredibly vulnerable, totally exposed to price swings.
And crucially, the sources point out, there was this real lack of effort to diversify the economy, to move beyond just oil.
That one single commodity became everything. The linchpin for the entire national budget, it seems.
Which really raises some critical questions, doesn't it, about the underlying goal of all that spending?
You mean, were the social programs the only goal?
Well, they certainly had some short-term benefits, no doubt, but the analysis we're looking at suggests that a significant chunk of that oil money might have been channeled more towards, let's say, consolidating political control rather than building truly sustainable economic development.
Okay, so the secret agenda perspective comes in here.
Sort of. When you see large sums going to populist projects that, well, maybe didn't have much long-term viability, and these oil deals with allies like Cuba, often under pretty opaque terms.
Not very transparent.
No. It does make you question if the main goal was genuine national progress, or was it more about securing a loyal base? Buying support, essentially.
Right. And the materials we reviewed do mention those accusations.
Yeah.
Cronyism, resources not always used efficiently.
Lavish projects that maybe looked good but didn't generate lasting economic activity.
And those oil agreements, seeming more political than economically sound for Venezuela itself in the long run.
Yeah, it paints a picture of priorities that might not have been solely focused on long-term national well-being.
In that context, that spending pattern, It's pretty crucial for understanding another aspect that emerges strongly from the
Such
sources,
as?
the increasing suppression of political opposition.
Ah, yes. The sources detail this gradual but very persistent chipping away at independent institutions.
The checks and balances you need in a democracy.
Exactly. Early on, constitutional reforms were pushed through that effectively concentrated more power in the executive, weakened those checks.
And it wasn't just dry institutional stuff, was it? The rhetoric got really aggressive.
Oh, definitely. The sources really highlight that. Anyone who voiced dissent, any critics,
Were labeled traitors,
yeah,
enemies of the state.
commonplace labels, and often amplified, pushed out through state-controlled media outlets.
Which, as we know, became increasingly dominant in shaping the narrative.
Precisely. So the space for actual free expression, for a free press, it just kept shrinking.
The RCTV shutdown in 2007 is mentioned frequently as a key moment.
A real turning point. Closing a major independent TV station sent a very clear message. There are limits to what you can say. Criticize too much, and you could be silenced.
So the analysis we're seeing suggests this kind of duality, this hidden aspect.
How so?
Well, the populist and anti-imperialist language was very strong, very outward-facing.
Yes, defending sovereignty.
Right. But underneath that, potentially masking these increasingly authoritarian moves, weakening democratic safeguards, controlling the media.
Limiting the public's access to different viewpoints, to critical perspectives, it all fits that pattern.
And alongside this political dimension, there's the whole issue of corruption and just, well, mismanagement.
Yeah, that's another really prominent theme in the source material. Despite Chávez often calling for transparency,
Right, the rhetoric was there.
the reality seems to have been widespread problems. PDVSA, the state oil company, is like a case study in itself.
What happened there?
Well, it was once seen as pretty efficient, quite well regarded internationally,
Okay.
but it became increasingly politicized. Key jobs often went to Chávez loyalists, many apparently lacking the deep technical expertise needed.
And the result?
Inefficiency,
Right.
allegations of embezzlement, and critically, a decline in actual oil production, which, given the economy's dependence,
Was a huge problem brewing.
a massive problem. And it wasn't just PDVSA, according to these accounts.
Corruption was wider.
Allegations point to it being present at multiple levels of government, talk of oil profits being siphoned off.
Offshore accounts, things like that.
Mentions of that, yes. And these questionable deals, not just with Cuba, but allies like Iran, Russia too.
So the picture emerging is one where a lot of wealth potentially accumulated with the ruling elite.
While essential things like infrastructure, public services were maybe deteriorating.
Okay, connecting that back to the governance style.
Yeah.
Does the analysis suggest Chávez's tight grip on power actually enabled this?
It seems to strongly suggest that yes, that the consolidation of power created an environment where corruption could perhaps thrive with less oversight, less accountability.
A patronage system. Loyalty rewarded, maybe tuning a blind eye.
The sources describe something like that, a system where loyalty was key and corruption might have been protected. And those international alliances you mentioned, while presented as solidarity, might have also facilitated these less transparent financial flows that didn't necessarily help ordinary Venezuelans.
And the state getting more involved in big parts of the economy without strong checks.
Right. It likely increased opportunities for inefficiency, maybe even graft, just because the accountability mechanisms weren't robust enough.
Okay, so while all this is happening, the oil boom, the political shifts, the corruption issues, there's also the rise of the Chavista movement itself.
Yes, this powerful ideological force. It was a real mix, wasn't it?
Socialism, Bolivarianism, that strong identification with Simón Bolívar.
And a very strong anti-imperialist, particularly anti-U.S. stance.
And it created this incredibly loyal base of support for Chávez and his vision. People who truly believed in it.
Definitely. But what's also really interesting and highlighted in the sources is the parallel rise of the military's influence.
Also.
Chávez started appointing more and more military figures to important civilian government jobs.
Blurring the lines between the military and the state.
Exactly. That connection just got deeper and deeper over his time in power. And then as his health started to decline,
Right, towards
the military's role in just maintaining political stability, holding things together, became even more crucial.
Which undoubtedly played into who came next. His successor, Nicolas Maduro.
The sources remind us. His background wasn't military, former bus driver, union leader.
But crucially,
He had cultivated very close ties within that military establishment.
and that connection seems key to how he managed to consolidate and hold on to power after Chávez died.
The analysis we're seeing really suggests that Chávez's reliance on the military wasn't just incidental, it was strategic.
A key part of maintaining control and maybe suppressing dissent.
That's what's argued, that the armed forces became absolutely vital for ensuring the Chavista project continued.
But the consequence?
Well, this deep involvement of the military in politics raises serious concerns, accusations of militarization, the further weakening of democratic checks and balances.
Now, all these threads, the oil dependence, the political clampdown, the corruption, the military's role, they all lead towards the eventual, well, devastating outcome.
The collapse of Venezuela's economy.
Yeah. I mean, by the time Chávez died in 2013, even after that whole decade of sky-high oil prices.
The foundations were already shaky. The country was vulnerable.
But what happened under Maduro?
Yeah.
It was just catastrophic, wasn't it?
Truly. Oil production plummeted even further. Inflation went through the roof.
Hyperinflation. Unimaginable level.
Exactly. Widespread shortages of absolutely basic goods, food, medicine.
Leading to that mass exodus. Millions of Venezuelans just fleeing the country.
And our sources really trace the roots of this collapse back to Chávez's era, those economic policies.
The heavy reliance on oil, you mean?
Yes, that, but also the price controls, the currency manipulation. They created huge distortions in the economy.
Made normal business almost impossible in some sectors?
Right.
Yeah.
And the fundamental failure to diversify, to seriously invest in other industries, in infrastructure.
And to tackle that corruption we talked about.
All of it together. It essentially laid the groundwork for the implosion that followed. It seems the focus on short-term populist gains.
Like the Misiones, perhaps.
Possibly. That focus ultimately undermined any chance of long-term sustainable growth. It created this incredibly fragile system, totally dependent on oil prices.
And when those prices eventually fell.
The whole house of cards came down. It was acutely vulnerable to those external shocks.
That's a really crucial point, isn't it? That despite all the promises of prosperity, that sea of happiness he talked about.
The underlying structural problems in the economy were just never really fixed, maybe even made worse.
Consequently, when you look at Chávez's legacy today, it's just incredibly contested, fiercely debated.
Absolutely. The sources show that clearly. For some, especially across parts of Latin America, he's still this icon.
A symbol of resistance,
Yeah.
champion of the poor, defying the U.S.
Exactly. That narrative is still very powerful for his supporters.
But for critics,
He's seen as the architect of Venezuela's tragedy, the leader who squandered unimaginable oil wealth, systematically undermined democracy.
and created this deeply corrupt system that led to ruin.
Two completely opposing views.
And the reality, as is so often the case, is probably much more complex.
Multifaceted.
You have to acknowledge, I think, there were genuine efforts, particularly early on, to improve social welfare for the poor. You can't just dismiss that.
No, you can't. But those efforts were deeply intertwined with these profound failures in governance, in economic management.
And the erosion of democratic norms.
His ideology, Bolivarianism, Chavismo. It's definitely left a lasting mark on Venezuela and the region.
No doubt. But it also seems clear it created the conditions, set the stage for the immense struggles Venezuela continues to face today.
So, looking back over this deep dive, what are the key takeaways, these
Yeah.
sort of underlying factors?
Well, I think several things stand out from the analysis. First, that paradox of the oil boom, huge wealth, but it didn't lead to sustainable development, maybe even hindered it.
The resource curse idea?
Sort of,
Yeah.
yeah. Then the systematic suppression of opposition and independent institutions.
Okay.
Third, those deeply entrenched patterns of corruption and mismanagement, particularly around PDVSA.
Right. Fourth, the steadily increasing political power and influence of the military. And finally, perhaps overarching all of it, the fundamental failure to build an economy that wasn't just dangerously dependent on that single volatile commodity oil.
And hopefully, for you listening, understanding these deeper currents, these less obvious factors that our source material brings to light.
Gives you a much richer, more nuanced view.
Yeah, it helps you move beyond maybe the simplistic hero-villain narratives you sometimes hear about Chávez and Venezuela. It's a really critical global issue, and the complexity matters.
It really does. Which maybe prompts a final thought for reflection.
Go on.
Considering Venezuela's extreme, almost total reliance on oil, What broader lessons can we draw from this? For other nations, maybe rich in one particular resource?
About the potential pitfalls,
Yeah.
the risks of that resource wealth.
Exactly, the risks of not diversifying it. And maybe also, how does this whole Venezuelan case study inform our understanding of what happens long term when political power gets really concentrated?
When democratic institutions get weakened.
Yes, what are the lasting consequences? It's definitely something worth thinking about as we look at different countries and their paths around the world.